Hey everyone, I hope you're doing great. Today we're going to talk about 3 great stretches for tight hips. I don't know about you, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but I am always super tight in my hips, and these 3 stretches are my absolute favorite. Even if you think you're not tight, I encourage you to try these 3 stretches, and they might tell you very quickly that you're tighter than you might think. All right, if you haven't checked out the Earn That Body podcast this week, it's a good one. It's 10 simple tips to clean eating and a little bit of an explanation of what clean eating is, because a lot of people are always asking me, well, what exactly is clean eating? I mean, how do you define that? And I honestly think that once you listen to this podcast, you'll realize that dieting and all these diet programs, they become so complicated. And if you just followed these 10 tips for clean eating, I think you'd realize very quickly that it doesn't have to be so complicated. Just try to clean things up. And so even if you've sort of fallen off track with COVID and the pandemic, following these 10 tips, I think, are really going to help you get back on track. Today also, we started the Body Zone Challenge. I have a couple more spots. I can squeeze a couple people in. If you email me today, kim@earnthatbody.com, I'll squeeze you into the Body Zone Challenge. It's a 21-day strength challenge. It's going to be awesome, and I'm really excited to sort of remotivate a lot of us, including myself, again, during tough times. Okay, so 3 hip stretches. Hips are, they're sometimes hard to get to in terms of stretching them properly. And like I said, sometimes you don't even realize that they're tight until you do some of these stretches. And then you're like, oh, wow, that really sort of hurts, or that's really tight, or I can't even do that stretch because I'm so tight. And I have really tight hips, just so you know. Okay, the first one is the figure 4. You probably know this one. I got to adjust my screen a little bit here so you can see me. The figure 4 is probably one of the most basic ones. That's when you bring that foot over the knee and you just sort of sit back. Let me see if I can get a little better into that screen. You just sort of sit back, and the key is that I really want your foot to be flexed, okay? Because when you flex this foot, you're protecting the knee. And then you can really sink down in the hips, okay? So I like to take this hand and just sort of push it open on the knee. I like to sit my hips way back. And again, keep this foot flexed so that you protect your knee. This is the figure 4. I feel it right here. And honestly, when you switch sides, and I'll show you from the side, when you switch sides, you might also notice that one side is always tighter than the other. So a good one to do, sort of evaluate where your hips are at and evaluate if one hip is tighter than the other. Hey Lisa, nice to have you live today. Okay, next move is the pigeon, another favorite of mine. A favorite because it's sort of, oh, hurts so good, if you know what I mean. Now, pigeon move is a yoga move, and it really does require a little bit of setup so that you can do it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from the side. I'll show you from this side first. You want to take this front leg, and you want this front foot, I'm going to show you from the other side. You want this front leg parallel as if I had a mat here, right? So this part of your leg, this front part, is almost parallel with the wall in front of you. And then you want to take your other leg back. Now this is your basic pigeon move. Now if you have any knee pain, bring this foot in closer to your hip. The more flexible you get is when you can really have that lower leg parallel with the floor. Now here's the key. You see how I'm leaning all the way over to my side? This is not pigeon, okay? So bring that foot in where you need it, but then you have to come all the way up. So I actually have space here between my thigh and the floor. I'm not leaning down onto the other hip. I have space here, and these hip bones are aligned with the wall ahead. So you can use your hands, you can tuck the toe under behind you, and just holding it here, you're gonna get a great stretch. Now, if you get a little bit deeper, that's when you start to bring the hands out in front of you and see if you can sort of lengthen. But again, you're not collapsing. This is what I always see is people are laying down on the thigh, the hip is on the floor. This is not a hip stretch. I don't really know what it is. It's not a hip stretch. So you want to get up and align those hips so that you can really feel that. And the pigeon stretch is known and wonderful for stretching out the hips. So Pigeon's something I do several times a week, open up both sides. I always have one side that is tighter than the other, and that's something you might notice too. The next one, I don't know what to call it, so I'm just calling it today the cross leg pull. You do this one on your back. So let's see the best way I can show you. It's a little hard. All right, so coming down onto your back, what you're going to do is you're going to cross one leg on top of the other. So it's almost like one knee is on top of the other right here. And then if you can, and some of you will find this difficult, try to take hold of both your ankles and sort of open up your feet. Now this alone, you will start to feel in your hips. If you can't do it, take a hold a little higher up and start to pull the knees in towards the chest. But the full stretch is really when you can take a hold of those ankles, open up the feet wide, and then pull them down towards you. And right there, you will totally feel it. And again, one side versus the other will always be easier. Open up the feet, then pull them down towards you. I should have done this earlier. So that is what I will call the cross leg pull. Again, I encourage you to try some of these. Even if you think your hips are not tight, you might quickly learn that they are in fact tight. And again, checking out which side is more tight than the other, because that's something you want to really take note of and work on the side that tends to be a little bit tighter. You don't want to have that imbalance, although it's normal. You want to just always make sure that you work on the side that is always tighter. All right, I always like to ask you a question. So whether you're live or watching the replay, go ahead and type in right here, hip problems are mostly felt in the hips. So what do you think about that? So do you think that most people who have hip pain, or I should say more like a hip problem, that could be a labral hip tear. Hello, I have that. Do you guys think that you'll know that because you feel that pain in your hips or the discomfort in your hips? Go ahead and type it in, again, whether you're live or on the replay. The answer to this is actually, are they felt mostly in the hips? No. And this is what can be really shocking for people, is a lot of problems with your hip are not necessarily felt in your hip. It's sort of like this random thing that you can have groin pain, and that's really common with the labral hip tear. You can have groin pain. I get a lot of sensation down my right quad that's not it's not hip pain. It's like a sensation, almost like a numbness from my hip tear. People get glute pain, people get thigh pain, but they don't always actually feel pain in their hips when they might have a hip problem. That could be arthritis, it could be the labral hip tear, it could be some kind of pull in the hip, some kind of muscular pull. But again, if you're someone who's been struggling and you're like, God, I've had this thigh pain for a really long time, I've had this glute pain, I had this groin pain that always hurts me after I run, you should know that it could be your hip that is causing the problem, and it might just need these 3 stretches. Like sometimes it's just about stretching a really tight muscle group. And so that can be a really great way for you to make sure that you're resolving it by working on the hips. But I always say, if you have pain for more than honestly 2 weeks in your hip, your glute, your groin, you should see a doctor. You should always get a proper diagnosis. The sooner we get a diagnosis, the sooner we can get a treatment plan and make sure that we're treating it in the right way. So never really go with pain for very long. Trust me on that one. Now, if you guys have any questions about any of my programs coming up, or you want to do the Body Zone Challenge, like I said, I can try to squeeze you in today. Nutrition questions, nutrition programs, shoot me an email. I'm a one-woman show. I'm the person who's going to email you back. And so, like I said, if you have nutrition questions or need help with weight loss, that's what I do. But I also have some fantastic online workout programs. And this is the time to be working out at home, unfortunately. With the COVID pandemic, I personally do not recommend going to a gym, to a cycle studio, to a yoga studio. There's too much risk right now in being in a small confined place where people are breathing really heavy without a mask on, because most of the gyms and the studios will not require that you actually wear the mask once you're in. So now is the time for home workouts, and I can certainly provide you with many. And a lot of you who say, but I'm just not motivated to work out at home, that's because you haven't done a program, and that's what I provide, a program where every day you get the email that tells you exactly what to do. But shoot me an email if you have any questions. Other than that, I just hope that you have a great week, a safe week, and a healthy week. Don't forget to wear your mask, and I'll see you next week for ETV TV. Thanks for joining, whether you were live or on the replay. Thanks, everyone.